Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor, simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Thomas Gauthier. Thomas Gauthier. What is there to say about this guy? We've known each other for a while, and he is one of my favorite creatives in a way that we are friends socially, we work together professionally, and I just admire everything that he does. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating here. He has built an incredible career for himself with very little, if not no, formal training. And we talk about this in the episode, how everyone in his family did the logical career path. He went from A to B, that equals C plus D, you went the logical career path. And he just said, I don't want to do this. I'm going to forge my career and learn as I go. And one of the coolest things I find with his mindset is this building of community, this building of collaborative community, finding the people who you can network with, finding the people who can be critical in a productive way to you as an artist, to you as a filmmaker, to you as a career person wanting to evolve in this industry. Like I said, we go into depth in this in the episode, but that's the biggest thing I admire about this big old guy. Please enjoy one of my nearest and dearest friends, Thomas Gauthier. Tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business?
We're going right into it.
Oh, yes.
I said I was going
friend.
in blind, and I'm having regrets. My story. When you say how I got into it, I'm very well versed in your podcast and the aspect of second act actors, where we've kind of lived our lives, and then it's just like, you know what? I want something different for myself. I want to take a stab at it. So in the second act of my life, we're going to try something different. For me, it was a lot of transitions and a lot of minor changes that led to a big decision. And what I mean by that is I always knew that I wanted to be an actor. From a very young age, I think I was doing my first plays in elementary school. There was a play called, it was either Zingarella and the Magic Pasta Pot or Luigi and the Magic Pasta Pot. And I'm leaning towards Luigi and the Magic Pasta Pot because I played Luigi. And he was one of the leads. And it was a story where, there's a village, it's a very poor village, and they have no food, and a magic pasta pot is delivered by a witch. And the only way that it works is if you say, magic pasta pot, make me pasta, and it won't stop making pasta until you say, magic pasta pot, stop making pasta. So there was whole debacle because no one knew how to make the thing stop. Anyways, I digress. That was like the first play I ever did, and that was probably in grade 5 or grade 6. So I knew from a very young age I loved to perform. I had a very, very supportive grandmother on my mother's side who was always hyping me up, tell jokes, do voices, and all that kind of stuff. And the Irish side of my family, my mother's side, the McCanns, a family of, musicians. My grandfather had a band. My grandfather owned a bar, so he was an MC, stand-up comedy. My oldest Uncle Chris, was very much a talker, a people person, loved to entertain. So I wasn't necessarily around a lot of artists growing up, but I was around people who loved to perform. So I knew that I wanted to perform. And growing up in Ottawa, there's not a huge art scene. There's the Ottawa Little Theaters, there's the NAC, but for up-and-coming theater nerds or filmmakers, there wasn't really much going on in the 80s and 90s, so it wasn't necessarily a priority. You go to school, you go to high school, you go to college, you do your thing. So I really didn't have much of an outlet to explore it up until, flash forward, let's say my late 20s, when my mother kind of pushed me to audition for the Ottawa Little Theater. There was a local dark Irish comedy that was auditioning, and she's like, you've been wanting to do this for years. Why don't you go out and take a shot?" And went and auditioned for a nice big role. Didn't get it, but the director liked me enough to give me one of the smaller roles and kind of push me to practice my acting and practice my theater and sharpen some skills. And I fell so madly in love with it again that I was just like, okay, I need to be doing this. This is what I need to be doing, at least part time. So I was bartending at the time. So working the clubs, and then on my off nights, working at the theater and getting better and getting stronger and becoming more comfortable. And within a couple of years, so my early 30s, I was like, I need to get up and go to Toronto where the action is. So it was probably around 33 or 34 that I kind of really began to take this seriously. So signing up for your Facebook groups and going to jigsaw casting for commercial auditions and slowly climbing the ladder of non-union, eventually getting an agent, building a network of peers around me that are also filmmakers and actors, and kind of hearing everyone else's story and, you know, learning the industry that is filmmaking, which is very, very difficult. And that leads me to now 40 and 6, 7 years doing this professionally, and I could not be happier.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, did anyone ever in your life growing up say, yeah, you're really good at this acting thing, this performing thing, adorable. That's not a logical career path for you. You should consider doing something else.
Absolutely. I'm not going to say that my parents didn't trust my judgment or, you know, didn't think the world of me and the arts, but we grew up in Ottawa. Ottawa is very much a government town. It's a very structured, safe, you know, A to B to C town. You go to school, you graduate, you go to university, you graduate, you get a job with the government, you get married, you have a wife and kids, you have a house, you retire, and you die. And there's nothing wrong with that life. That's it's very Ottawa. It's very structured. It is what it is. Like my sister, who still lives in Ottawa, she's a teacher. My brother, who lives out west, but very much kind of an Ottawa mentality. He works for the RCMP. He's a police officer. So very, I don't want to say standard jobs, but very, I guess we'll say normal.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you know, okay, what's JT, John Thomas? What's JT going to do? He'll be an engineer, or he likes buildings. He'll be an architect, or he's a bartender. He'll open up a hotel or a restaurant and stuff like that. So it wasn't that it was stifled or that there were doubts. It's just in Ottawa, there really was no bigger vision for film or for television or for art, so to speak, at least when I was growing up. Now, Ottawa's got a massive film and television scene. I mean, I know you've been there. You've at least auditioned for Ilona Smythe and Smythe Casting, which is huge. And it's not just movies of the week or Hallmark now. It's, you know, they're big budget Hollywood things and Canadian shows and Canadian films. And there's a lot going on there. But in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, there just wasn't anything like that in Ottawa. So it wasn't that it was the norm. It wasn't a safe bet.
Mm-hmm. And when you came to Toronto, I mean, that's kind of that logical, you know, everybody in the States goes to LA or New York. Everyone in Canada goes to Vancouver or Toronto. When you don't have formal education or a crew of people yet to figure out how this industry works, how did you figure that out? What was your process when you got here?
It was very, you know, crash course, very kind of into the fire. When I got to Toronto, let's say it was August or September 2017, and right off the bat, I logged on to Facebook and I got into jigsaw casting or powerhouse casting or whatever other casting houses had Facebook groups where they would post, you know, seeking non-union for a commercial, for a Budweiser commercial, or for a Smirnoff commercial, or for a Tim Hortons commercial. So I really didn't have much formal training. I had done some theater and, you know, I knew my way around a camera, so to speak, but I had never set foot on a film set proper. I'd done background work in Ottawa, but when you're doing background, you know, you're not really doing much. You're there and you're waiting. So you're not really appreciating the machine for what it is.
Mm.
So to build my community and my network and my knowledge, it was very, very small. It was very slow, and it was little increments and little bits. I was very lucky after I booked my first commercial, which was relatively quick. It was after only a few months in Toronto. And as you know, a lot of times for commercials, they're looking for a specific look. It's not necessarily, it has to do with the depth of your abilities or your resume. It's, we're showcasing a product, you showcase the product well, we want you. So after that first commercial, I was introduced to an agent who is still my current agent, Terry, at Ritter Talent Agency. And, you know, she didn't have anyone who fit my look on her roster, which was very important, as I learned, because if, you know, you have something that others don't have, whether it be a look or a niche or a skill set that makes you more appealing. And she took a shot on me right out of the gate, and, you know, booked another commercial, booked a non-union movie, booked a couple of non-union TV shows, booked a union commercial, booked a union show. Then I have my two union credits, and then booked my third to go full union. And I mean, I was very lucky in the sense that from the time that I started to the time that I got to the union was maybe a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages. The advantages, obviously, are the protection from the union, the pay, the comparatively better treatment on set, all that kind of stuff. But I really didn't get as much of an opportunity to learn slowly and go through the paces as a lot of other actors do, who spend you know, years doing non-union work to really hone their craft and really build and expand their network. So it was kind of bittersweet, but I did learn who to surround myself with, both professionally and socially in this industry. And I've been very, very fortunate to meet some fantastic people, yourself included, who are nothing but joys to be around socially and professionally. And, you know, when you find a good group of people, who really have each other's backs and who are encouraging and supportive and who can have discussions that we can't really have with anybody else. It's very hard to explain to someone who's not in film how frustrating it can be to sit in your trailer or your honey wagon for 4 hours waiting. It's like, well, what do you mean you're making movies? It must be so cool. It's like, you don't get it. Like, we hurry up and wait. You could have a makeup call time for 8 a.m. and you might not set foot on set till 3 p.m. And it's just like, you better have a book, or you better have your phone fully charged, or you better bring your backpack with a change of clothes and a pillow. So these things that other people in other industries just have no idea about, we have an advantage, and we have a duty as a very small community to back each other up, to be a shoulder to lean on, to be a voice of reason, and just, you know, to be a friend and supportive. So I've been very, very fortunate to slowly curate a group and a network and a village of people that I do consider friends and who are fantastic professional individuals as well.
I think
Yeah.
especially when we don't come with that fully made, right? Like, as a lot of people do when you come out of professional education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you come out of med school, you know, law school, police academy, anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
you come with people who've gone through the fire with you, and you
Yeah.
kind of forge that. And then for something like the entertainment industry, it just doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to trust everyone, trust no one, and figure it out on the fly, which is terrifying.
It's terrifying. And I mean, to add to what you said, going from medical school or police academy or teachers college or whatever it is, you're given a set of skills and a set of tools that you know will be applied to your profession. When you're doing this and you're in your second act and you don't have any formal training, you don't know what to expect. Like, you're really being thrown to the hounds, so to speak. I was not prepared for a lot of things on my first day on set. You know, you kind of, okay, we're doing blocking. I was like, okay, cool. I know what blocking means. So I stand here and then I go here. Okay, so this is my first position. That's my second position. Okay, cool. All right, first team, step off. Am I first team? Like, do you need me to stay, or do I go? Do I go back to the trailer, or do I? Where do I go? I don't know. So you're not prepared as well as you could be. Like, you know, you're in med school. you're performing a surgery or you're performing a procedure, this is how it starts, this is what you do, this is how it's finished. Like, you know what to expect, or how to handle a situation as a police officer, or how to handle writing a test as a teacher. Like, there are strict guidelines to follow. Whereas we just kind of like, we're learning as we go, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think what else is unique about that is formal education for any other career gives you access to the world, where formal education in acting gives you access to jack shit.
Nothing.
Nothing.
It really guarantees you nothing.
It does.
And I'll have conversations, and I know lots of people who've gone to the film school, have gone the film school route, and have, taken years of formal training, whether it be stage or whether it be improv or whether it be, the fundamentals of acting, training with like a Louis Beaumont or a Sophie Rooney or something like that. And I have nothing but respect for people who take the time and acquire those tools. But you could be working with the world's greatest acting coach. You could go to the world's most expensive film school. That's not guaranteeing you work. Like, it really, really isn't. You're not walking out of film school or out of an acting class with a job waiting for you. You really, really, really have to bust your ass. You really, really have to stand out. And a really difficult thing that a lot of actors fail to deal with or fail to handle very well is the time it can take. I mean, actors that haven't booked anything in 10 years. Some actors book, 4, 5, 6 times a year. This is amazing, I'm on fire. And then they don't book anything again for 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. And that can be so tough mentally to be able to sit with and be like, it's okay, it wasn't for me. It's not my time. It's not my time. It's not my time. And in this business, it might never be your time. And that's something that you really have to embrace and that you have to accept, and you have to really, really want to do this because you love it. Not because it's going to make you money or get you famous. You have to be doing this job because you love to make art. And if you don't, you're only going to let yourself down.
So in times when that happens for you, as it does happen for everyone in this industry, when the industry goes woo, up, down, what do you do to stay motivated?
In terms of the profession as an actor and as a filmmaker?
Yeah.
Once again, a lot of it goes back to my network. Having conversations with people such as yourself, or the big, beautiful Sean Sims, or Joseph, or, some of my nearest and dearest who are in the industry and understand and can have conversations, potentially difficult ones, is like, maybe it's time to pivot. Maybe you want to try a different aspect of the industry. Maybe you want to go work at a casting house. Maybe you want to learn how to be a producer. Maybe you want to try your hand at writing. It's, just because you're an actor doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get work as an actor. You have to learn how to pivot. You have to learn how to try new things. And if I've learned anything over these last few years, it's that it's not enough to be one thing in this industry. You produce your own films now. You know that. And if I'm not getting casted in the films that I want to make or the shows that I want to make, I better find a way to make them myself. And it's not to make millions of dollars. Like, we're not making any money off our short films, but we get to tell our stories. We get to tell them the way that we want to, and we get to do something that we love so much. So really, to answer your question, to stay motivated, it's just to surround myself with the people who understand, and to find something else within the industry that I can do to still flex my muscles, so to speak, to still practice, to still learn, to still become better.
Now, I know you work as a bartender concurrent with your job as filmmaker, actor, writer, producer. Do you notice your job, like your day job, even though I know you work in the nights?
Yeah.
Anything that you've noticed from that career, do you find, has that helped you in your acting career?
Oh my God. I wouldn't be the actor that I am had I not spent so many years behind a bar. Absolutely. Some people go train at Second City for a decade. I've been bartending for 22 years. I've never done any formal improv training, but I can talk to anyone about anything at any time. I can switch energies. I've got an absolutely impeccable human radar for when someone's full of shit. And there are so many transferable skills from being a bartender to being an actor, being in this very cutthroat industry. Absolutely. I would not be the filmmaker that I am today, or even the writer that I am today, understanding the human condition, had I not been bartending or working hospitality for years.
I remember when I was like one of my first acting classes I ever took, and I kept thinking like, oh, they always say you got to kind of quit your job and be all into acting, and it was just bullshit. And I remember somebody saying to me, oh, like you're a doctor, you're literally witnessing, like you said, the human condition all day. What an incredible, like, laboratory of human beings to watch. Like, you're in acting school. Like, watching these people. I'm like, I never thought about that. Like, a forward, public-facing job is basically acting school.
You're at all times, and I mean, doctor as well, at all times you are watching a play or a story unfold. At all times, it is around you. And we all are. I don't care if you flip burgers or you're a teacher, you're a brain surgeon, you're a bartender, whatever it is. There is constantly a dance or a play or a story going on around you to various depths. And it really is on you to pay attention and to absorb what you feel you can. And most people just go through their day kind of, head down or eyes forward, whereas us, we look at the world a little bit differently, and we're constantly picking little things from conversations and things that we're seeing in visualizations and scenarios and kind of storing them in their data bank as performers and as actors and as writers to be withdrawn at a later time or when it's convenient for us. So we're given an opportunity with the way that our minds work to really look at the world in a very different way and to take these experiences, whether they be direct or indirect, and apply those to our craft. So
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any advice for anyone who's looking to get into the entertainment industry, perhaps later on in life?
Absolutely. I would say the only thing that's really stopping you from doing it is yourself. Start small. I understand that it can be very intimidating, very, very scary. Trying anything new is very, very scary. But you got to know that it's really only on you. And if you really, 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 really want it, you have to take the steps. You have to do the work. And there's nothing wrong with starting small. There's nothing wrong with doing background work, or doing non-union commercials, or going to audit an audition class. Just put yourself around the people that you want to be. People always say you are who you surround yourself with, or you are the 5 people you spend the most time with, and all that kind of stuff. And I do believe that is true to a degree. And when I think about that in a professional sense, if you want to be an actor, if you want to be a filmmaker, surround yourself with the people who are like-minded in that sense. Surround yourself with some actors. Go meet some people. Go network. This industry is 90% networking. Like, dare I say, to go as far as use the word nepotism, but this industry is so network-driven. And who do you know? Who have you worked with? What do you want to do? What can you bring to the table? That even if you're a very inexperienced filmmaker or actor and you're around people who are making films and who are doing things, eventually you'll catch a break for something. Be a PA on a friend's short film. Go, and learn what a camera operator does. Like, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars on film school and spend years learning these things. Just surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, and meet people who want to do the same things that you want to do, and you're only going to learn from it.
Has there been anything that has surprised you about this industry in your last few years, kind of really building your career?
Yeah, this industry is just like any other industry. And what I mean by that is you're going to meet a lot of really good people. You're going to meet a lot of really shitty people. Um, and all these actors, all these filmmakers that so many people idolize and put on these pedestals and think that they're this different breed of human. They are not. We have our failures, we have our imperfections, we have our bad days. A lot of us are full of shit. A lot of us know very much what we're talking about. A lot of us have no idea. And just like with everything else with social media, most people only post their wins. Like let's say in the last 7 years, I've had a ballpark at 150 auditions. I've booked, let's say 20, which is a massive percentage. Like, don't get me wrong, that's a huge percentage. But a lot of us will do 4, 5, 600, 1,000 auditions in our lifetime and maybe have 5 or 6 credits. So you are not seeing, as someone who's not in the industry, you're not seeing all the work, all the frustration, all the depression, all the confusion that we go through, just like with any other industry. Like it's so glorified, but it really is like every other job. You're going to go to work and you're going to be like, oh, Joey's here. I love Joey. Or you're going to step into the makeup trailer and be like, oh, God, it's Lewis. Everyone fucking hates Lewis. It's just like any other job. There are people that you're going to be happy to see. And there's people that you're going to be like, I got to work with this idiot again. It's so universal. A water cooler is a water cooler, like you're going to have the shop talk, and it's just like any other job. We just happen to do it in front of a camera.
I'd love to talk mainly because I've had this conversation with a lot of actors who have a look, right? A quote unquote character actor, which I'm going to put you there, right? Because you have a distinct look as opposed to, like, sure, me, white 30-something female, kind of dime a dozen. You not going to go out for a Hallmark Christmas movie, but
nope.
I've seen your slates be like, I have tattoo clearance for all my tattoos, right?
Yeah. They're all owned by me. You want me or not? Yeah.
When I've talked to other character actors who have a distinct look, it's been interesting because they've had very similar sentiments to like, yes, when I know I'm right for the part, I know I'm right. But the problem also is it's like me and like 3 others and we all look the same and we're kind of a dime, not a dime a dozen, but there's like 6 of us who are tall, long-haired, tattooed males. And the problem with this visual industry is that we are all the same in the eyes of the director. Like, just pick one of them. I don't care. They're all the same.
Yeah.
How does that resonate with you? How do you feel about that?
I would agree with you. Absolutely. There is, when you have a niche look, we'll call it, that's what got me my agent. There was no Vikings on her roster. There were a couple of big muscular guys, but not with long hair and beards and tattoos. So the advantages very much balance with the disadvantages. Like you said, I don't even get looked at for Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
Not even looked at. I could be Daniel Day-Lewis good. Based on my appearance, no, you're not right for the role. And that's fine. That's fine. The first few years, it was definitely a matter of acceptance. Like, I know, bodyguard, tough guy number 2, biker, whatever it is. I willingly and very happily take those roles. Now, I really, really, in recent years, have tried to emulate Batista's career, where he knew what he was.
Yes.
He knew what he was. He played it to the best of his abilities. A lot of bad guy roles, a lot of tough guy roles. And he still will do those every once in a while. But he has demonstrated that he's not a one-trick pony, that he's got depth, and he's been willing to learn. He's been willing to take chances, whether it be that small, beautiful role he had in Blade Runner 2049, where he was a big, tough replicant or android, whatever they were, but he was tragically flawed and a very dark, very sad character. And then you have Knock at the Woods or Knock at the Cabin with Shyamalan's latest movie, where he's a big guy in appearance, but he's got the mentality of a child, and he's very soft and very different. So as a fellow filmmaker, it's like, okay, cool. If I'm not going to get looked at for comedies or for romances or for dramas, in order for me to show that I can do them, I have to make my own. And that's been the really, really big thing. My business partner and I, Madison, who is a godsend. She's an absolute workhorse. She is much like you, she's one of the strongest women I've ever met. And we've got a great little film production company. And, we're in post-production for our first comedy together. And I've done comedy, but it's been shorts or smaller scale, or, not really showcasing the best of my comedic timing or my physical comedy. Like, it's been situational. So it's like, oh, he's a really big guy, let's give him a girl's voice, or oh, he's a really big guy, let's use that to our advantage. This is very much, dialogue heavy and gives an opportunity for me to play because I wrote it, because it's my movie. So when this comes out and I'm able to attach this to my reel and I can showcase this to casting directors, it's like, hey, I can also do this. I'm not just the big guy. So, it's, once again, it goes back to how much work are you willing to put in and what are you willing to do that you have control over. If I'm not getting looked at for anything but tough guy roles, that's fine. But in order for me to showcase that I can do more, I need to do it myself.
Do you think in a small industry like Toronto, we have even the capability of gaining the clout to be cast outside of what we look like?
I really do think so, but it's going to take, whether it be a director or a project that's willing to take a chance on you. Like you talk about casting, like going up against a casting, or I'm not sure what the specific term is, but you're reading against a part. Let's say a part was initially written for, in the character breakdown, a short, bald, white man with no tattoos. And my agent or myself somehow convinced a casting director to let me read for it. And I did something in that audition that said, you know what, we're going to take a chance on John. There's only so much that you have control over, and the rest is kind of in the hands of the universe or in the hands of the casting director. So, there's a way to do it, I'm sure, but there has to be a whole bunch lining up at the right time in the right way. Or, like, we were just talking about, you make something yourself, it does very well at festivals, or it gets picked up as a web series, or it gets picked up for distribution, and then it's like, whoa, where the hell did this guy come from? Okay, cool, like, he's clearly onto something. Let's use him, because it's an advantage for them too. It's a win for them.
Yeah.
They're going to make money at the end of the day. Great exposure and clout for me, but it's a business. Like, a producer is nothing more than an investor. So it's a business. If they're going to make their money off of it, yeah, why would they not want to push a product? I just happen to be the product.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to think about things. You mentioned your family at the beginning. What would they say you do for a living?
Oh God, that depends on who you ask. I mean, if you ask my son, he'll say that his dad's a superhero, which is awesome because he's the coolest little dude.
The dream.
If you probably asked my mom, she'd say, "Oh, he makes drinks and plays dress up." Like, just like, they love I love my mother. She's one of my best friends. Like, she is so no holds back, no bullshit. My mother has no filter. She's Irish Catholic. No filter. If she likes you, she'll tell you. If she doesn't like you, she'll tell you. It is what it is. So she has no problems taking the piss out of me. So I think it's going to be a matter of one of those things that until I'm acting full time, or until, like, my face is on a billboard somewhere, it's like, oh, you're acting. It's like, oh, this is for real. Like, this is your career. And it's not to say that she doesn't believe in me, but it's just, until you really hit it, have you really hit it? How do you explain to someone, who's not in the industry that it's like, I'm making progress, I'm doing this, there are so many moving pieces. Okay, cool. When can we see it? Maybe in a year when it's finished. Like it's so frustrating to explain to someone. It's like, oh, I just shot this amazing project. Cool. When's it come out? I don't know. Netflix. Whenever they decide to release it, like I have no idea. It could be 3 months. It could be 3 years.
Mhm.
So I think my family is very, very supportive. It definitely depends on who you ask. What I do for a living, but they're nothing but supportive, and they get it. They know at the end of the day I'm doing what I love. It's not necessarily what they would have had envisioned for me growing up,
Mm.
being that my sister is a teacher, my brother's a cop, and their oldest is a bartender who makes movies sometimes. So, like, I don't know what the hell my kid does. Like, so.
Do you have any favorite memories from times on set? Any funny stories?
Oh, yeah, I've got a few. Um, I was very, very, very privileged when the pandemic hit and things were not going so great. I managed to book a role in a Nick Cage and Ron Perlman movie, shooting in the Caymans. So
Oh.
this was my first big travel experience for a production, and it happened to be the Cayman Islands during COVID. So it was like, get me the hell out of Toronto. This is when it was like lockdown 1.0, so it was like 1940s Poland to go to the grocery store. Like this, there was nobody on the streets. It was zombie apocalypse. Like you're standing outside waiting for a line, 10 people at a time in the grocery store. Bars are closed, restaurants are closed, everything is closed. So there was nothing going on. And I booked a movie in the Cayman Islands, so I got to get the hell out of there. So I got to spend 42 days in the Caymans. And after your 2 weeks of quarantine in the hotel, we were out, no masks on the islands. Bars were open, nightclubs, everything was open. So it was complete, 180 degrees. And we got to work with Ron Perlman and Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is a character. We didn't see much of him because Nick Cage was being Nick Cage. But Ron was out with the cast and the crew all the time. All the time. And Ron is a huge Frank Sinatra fan, which I didn't know. So, like, we'd be at bars and he'd be doing Frank Sinatra karaoke, hanging out with all the cast and crew, and so good. And keep in mind, like I said, this was early on in the pandemic, so I wasn't working. So I had my per diem, and I had like $60 on my Capital One Blue MasterCard, like the card you first get when you're rebuilding your credit. Like, congratulations, you have a $250 limit on this credit card. Like rebuilding my life. So I'm like, okay, I've got no money. I have to budget things very, very cautiously. And there was one night we all went out for dinner. It was, the producers, the director, some of the key cast. So there was about 15, 20 of us. And we went out for a nice dinner. And in my head, I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to have any drinks. I'm going to order a salad. I'm going to have the soup. So that's going to be $38. I know I can afford this. I'm good. Like, I'm set. And everyone's drinking. Everyone's having all their meals. We're all having a great time. We're having like a 2-hour dinner, like invaluable conversations, great connections. And right at the end of the night, the server comes over and it's like, okay, guys, like, how are we going to do the bills? And someone suggested, okay, no, just everyone throw their credit cards in the middle and we'll split everything equally. And I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, there's no way this is going to be $60. Like, this is going to be like $250 each. My credit card's going to bounce. I've already spent my per diem. I'm so embarrassed. I don't know what to do. And Ron, I think, kind of sensed something. And he didn't say anything to me. He didn't say anything to anyone else. But when the server came back to start collecting cards, Ron said, you know what? I'm just going to take the bill for everyone. And I kind of looked at him and he kind of looked at me. And I never said anything, but he's Ron Perlman. He's been doing this forever. But once again, he understands the human condition.
Mm.
So picking up on little micro feelings and twitches and shuffling and stuff, Ron knew.
Mm.
And for him to take the bill and cover everything, I was just like, I thanked him later. He's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it, kid." I'm in my mid-30s, Ron. Like, oh, you want to call me kid? Cool, I'm cool. They like Ron Perlman talk to me, but he would spend 3-4 nights a week with us sitting around the fire drinking tequila. So 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and Ron was the first person the next day at 8 a.m. in the makeup chair.
Wow.
Like never failed, never failed. And he was the most genuine human being, like for better or for worse. Like Ron, if he didn't like something, he's like, "This is bullshit. I'm not doing it." Like he's Ron Perlman's being Ron Perlman, but he was so genuine and so real. And for him to do something like that for like little old me and little old us was just like, it was really cool.
Oh, that's so neat. That's such a
Yeah.
cool, like, what an experience.
Oh,
Like,
amazing.
it just makes me think, like, that is what life is about, as corny as that sounds. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's these experiences like that. Like, not just
Yeah.
like, yay, free dinner. But like you
Yeah.
were saying, it's the conversation, it's the connection, it's
Yeah.
being in the Caymans during chaos time. Like, it's just, you'll never forget that,
So
right? That's so
different.
cool.
And it was another opportunity for me to understand that actors, whatever, Hollywood elite, we're all the same. They're just like us. They have their emotions, they have their wants, their needs. Like there was the same set, and Ernie Hudson was on the film. Ernie Hudson, one of the original Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
who, by the way, is in such good shape. I think he's in his 70s, and he is in such good shape. Like he's so built, such a nice guy. We're sitting, in holding, waiting for a scene to start. Everyone's talking. Ernie's sitting in a lazy boy having a nap. Like he's not in a massive trailer away from everyone. He's like, "Anyone sitting here? No, Ern, you're good. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take a quick nap." It's just like Ernie fucking Hudson's taking a nap beside us. It's like, yeah, he's a human being. If he's tired, he's gonna have a nap. Just we too bleed. We are all mortal. Like we're all human here. There's no one's better or worse than ever. There's status, but we're all still humans.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like with Ron. It's we're all human.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was just cool once again to be reminded of mortality, if you will. Yeah.
Do you have anything you're looking forward to coming up?
Projects wise?
Anything?
Oh my God, there's so much. I had a very, very good year, probably the best year that I've had as a filmmaker, as an actor this past year, 2024. So yeah, there's a lot coming out. I was fortunate enough to work on a couple of really big projects. One of them was FUBAR. So I didn't get to spend much time with Schwarzenegger, but I spent a lot of time with Jay Baruchel and Andy Buckley, who are lovely. Just the nicest humans. So I had a lot of fun working on FUBAR with them. I got to work on Twisted Metal for Paramount. Got to drive a super cool car with a bunch of machine guns on it and do some really cool stuff. I got to work with Samoa Joe. I'm a huge WWE fan, and another situation where a larger than life personality is just the most down to earth, sweet human being that you could ever hope to meet. So shout out to Samoa Joe, absolute sweetheart. I got to shoot a movie with the surprisingly talented Julia Fox. So Julia Fox from Uncut Gems. She is dipping her toe more into the film industry in terms of being a producer and being an actor. We did a really, really cool movie together. She wanted to do all of her own fight stunts. She wanted to be ever present. She was very, very eager and wanted to learn, no ego. Super, super impressed with her. I got to shoot another movie I believe this one was in Sudbury, called Violence. So kind of like the Warriors in the 80s, where semi-post-apocalyptic, where different factions of gangs run different parts of the cities and there's big battles and stuff. There's, all of those that I just mentioned are all coming out in 2025. And then my production company with my business partner, we're in post-production for our first comedy. Our first thriller and horror is already in the festival circuit. I'm currently writing our second comedy now, and Madison's going to be doing a whole bunch of legwork in LA, pitching some of our features and talking to some people about getting a series, a really, really big series we've been working on to get that off the ground. So it's very hard for me to answer that question simply.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot coming up and a lot going on. And since I started, let's say in 2018 professionally, my agent and I have had a plan for 2025 to be the year that hopefully I make the transition, knock on wood, to either acting full time or acting nearly full time. Mm-hmm. So we're really, really going to make a big push this year to get me a supporting lead, or at least a nice big juicy recurring somewhere, and to really showcase what I can do, not just as a tough guy, but to show some more depth. Mm-hmm. And I really believe that a lot of the projects that I've worked on, there's some comedies and a lot of stuff that's coming out, some comedies and some action, will showcase what I can do, and that we can apply that to 2025 and really hit the ground running. So
hell yeah. I'm so excited for you. Like, it just makes me really, really happy to see people like you who, like, because it sounds a little bit paternalistic when I say this, but, like, we're friends. When I see the work that you do, right? Like, I know how fucking hard you work.
Mm-hmm. And,
like, you've been saying the whole time throughout this chat about, like, people who aren't in the industry, it's hard to comprehend the amount of work that goes on.
Very difficult.
Like, you see it, and you see the build, and you see it's not a Ottawa career, but you've done the A to B to C to D, and it's fucking hard. Mm-hmm. And I see it. Like, I'm so excited for you.
It's not for the faint of heart. I appreciate that very much, Shannon. I really do. It's not for the faint of heart. And I'm a firm believer that the only reason I've been fortunate enough and privileged enough to do a lot of things that I'm doing is because I couldn't give two shits about getting rich or famous. I don't care. I really don't care. I make good money as a bartender. I also have, such little pride and ego that I could bartend until I'm 50 or 60. I don't care. I'm making money. Mm-hmm. But I genuinely love film. Mm-hmm. I love it. I watch it very differently than most people do. Most people who aren't in our industry, as an actor, as a filmmaker, we typically look at film very differently. We interpret it very differently. We have an appreciation for, when we see a certain shot, like, oh, wow, I wonder how they did that, or I know how they did that, and that's really tough. Like, bravo. It's like, what do you mean that movie was shit? Yeah, but the way that they shot it, we have a different appreciation. And I've said this before on interviews, I've said it in conversations. There is nothing else on this planet I would rather be doing. Nothing. Nothing. I'll make short films and little indies until the day that I die. I don't care. I love to play. I love it.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Yeah, have fun. Just don't... This job is hard enough. This life is hard enough. And this world is hard enough. Have some fun. Find some joy. There's... Even if you want to shoot a little 3-minute movie on your iPhone, or you want to get together with some friends and do a table read something together, or if you want to start a film production company, or if you want to be an actor, no matter what you're choosing to do, try your best to have fun. Like, we've got one ride on this space rock. Like, unless you're a severe believer in reincarnation, and I might come back as, as a dog in the next life, or come back as, a rich prince born into a Dubai family. I don't know. But the point is, we're here for one trip. Have some fun. Try and find some joie de vivre. Try and find something that no one can take from you. And just appreciate it. Embrace it. Because, at the end of the day, the longest relationship you're ever going to have is with yourself. So make it a good one and find something that makes you happy.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, John. Thomas, JT, for being my guest this week. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, doing all the incredible things you are doing in this crazy dumpster fire life. I so appreciate you. I love your story. Again, I'll reiterate from what I said at the beginning. I love how you're building a career, building a community, and just doing the goddamn thing. I'm so inspired, and I hope you all are inspired by him as well, too. And thank you all for listening. And I hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.